Terrificon is back. The Terrific Comic-Con, devoted to, what else? Comic books and their creators, returns to Mohegan Sun Expo Center in Connecticut. The 3-day event features the largest gathering of comic book writers and artists. The largest of its kind in New England is on August 9th through the 11th. Terrificon producer Mitch Halleck promises this year's event will be the best con he's ever produced, with today's top talent like Tom King, Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman, Clay Mann, Liam Sharp, Derek Robertson, plus legendary creators Jim Steranko, Chris Claremont, Jim Starlin, Jerry Ordway, and in his final con appearance, the one and only George Perez. Terrificon will be celebrating Batman's anniversary, as well as featuring actors from the Bat films, Billy D. Williams, Robert Wool, and Val Kilmer. Plus, Doctor Who's John Barrowman, The Flash's John Wesley Shipp, the voice cast reunion of Animaniacs, and Pinky and the Brain, and lots more. See for yourself why Terrificon is summer's hottest Comic-Con, this August 9th through the 11th, only at Mohegan Sun. For more information and guest list, visit Terrificon.com. It's terrific! Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntra's here. I know the voice sounds crazy. It's just because it's 5 in the morning when I'm doing these intros. But I wanted to put out a couple new shows because it's Word Balloon's anniversary. 14th anniversary. Can you believe it? May 10th, 2005. That's when Word Balloon debuted. And I have a couple episodes today that are great ways to celebrate the anniversary. For the rest of the month of May, there'll be more amazing interviews with new people and old favorites coming back. And I hope you're going to enjoy them. But this first one that I'm releasing today is Isaac Goodhart. Now, Isaac just drew the DC young adult book, Catwoman Under the Moon, a great book. It was one of the featured free comic book day books. The full graphic novel is coming out later this month, and it's terrific. Now, Isaac has an amazing story of how he broke into comics. He got his big break at Top Cow with Matt Hawkins and Brian Edward Hill as the artist on Postal, and got into the DC talent seminars and worked his way up through there. He also went to SVA and was taught by the great Klaus Janson. Great stories about how the talent search went for DC and Klaus helping him out, and some incredible stuff at the end of the conversation about Isaac's mother, Esther Goodhart, the comedian who played a lot in New York in the 90s. You could find some of her video on YouTube. Very funny lady, and a great inspiration to Isaac, and a mother that really helped open doors for Isaac. A really interesting story at the end of the conversation. You're not going to believe it. But Isaac Goodhart is on today's Word Balloon. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you, League, for your great support via Patreon. If people want to help out, it's patreon.com/wordballoon, and that's the place to go. And Word Balloon is free, but if you want to help the cause out, you can subscribe via Patreon at patreon.com. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics, the industry's fastest growing independent publishing company. They're calling 2019 the year of reading dangerously, and why not? Some of the great books that they've been releasing in the last few years: Marguerite Bennett's Animosity, Garth Ennis's A Walk Through Hell, Cullen Bunn's Dark Ark, Baby Teeth from Donny Cates. Wandell also doing great art choice on Dark Ark. Aftershock continues to push the envelope further this year with new releases. Things like Descendant by Stephanie Phillips, Killer Groove that comes out at the end of the month from Ollie Masters and Owen Marin, Stronghold with Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly, Oberon, a new Supernatural series from Ryan Parrott, Dark Red, a brand new series from Tim Seeley, centering on a vampire living in rural America. Lots of great stuff, amazing books, genre-breaking stories from Aftershock Comics. Now, in the weeks ahead, we'll have more talks with more Aftershock creators about their specific books, but you don't have to wait. Go to their website, check out full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, believe me, the voice is fine. It's going to be fine in like an hour or two when the day kicks in. But, man, I'm really glad I'm not on the radio right now, but I'll give you the crappy voice for this podcast. But don't feel bad. You'll hear me in good voice with this conversation with Isaac Goodhart. The intent was to release this before Free Comic Book Day, but I fell into some red tape and thankfully got my way out of it and I'm happy to present this conversation now. Still good because Under the Moon, you might still find it at the free sample that DC was offering for Free Comic Book Day, but also the full graphic novel coming out at the end of the month. So check it out. A great conversation with Isaac Goodhart talking about Catwoman, Postal, working at Top Cow in DC, and also just an amazing origin story as well. Isaac Goodhart on today's Word Balloon. Isaac Goodhart, welcome to Word Balloon. A long time coming, as I was saying before we started this recording. But thank you for letting me know who you are and making me aware of your excellent work. And truly, man, no, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. So welcome.
Well, hey, I'm a long-time listener, John. I've been listening to you for 10 plus years since my college days. So to be a guest on the show is a bucket list item for sure. So thank you very much for having me on.
No, it's my pleasure, dude. So, all right, we'll start with the Isaac Goodhart origin, or oranges, as our president would say.
Oranges, sure.
Yes. Secret oranges. That's what they, even before the president, Art and Franco put that in Tiny Titans for secret origins. They're like, yeah, because they're second graders, so they don't know. So it's like, I don't know, something about a secret orange. What kind of secret orange? I don't know. So, but let's get your secret orange now. So, how did you get interested in comics?
I feel like I have several big key moments that made me want to do comics for a living, right? So, everybody that's my age, I'm 31 years old, so everybody in my age group grew up with Batman the Animated Series because I was 4 when that cartoon came out.
Cool,
so
perfect.
Grew up with that. That was around the same time the X-Men Animated Series was out.
Sure.
And Spider-Man. I loved Iron Man the most. I don't think a lot of people remember Iron Man. There was Fantastic Four. There was UPN had 3 different cartoons. So I was watching all of those, and then I remember specifically being 7 years old, and my dad brought down from the attic. He uncovered a box of comics from when he was my age, right? So there were a few Spider-Mans in there, mostly Tarzan.
Cool.
So there was mostly. It blew my mind. He had some Neil Adams Batman stuff in there. I think it was around issue 200 of Detective Comics. So, my brain exploded. Can you imagine watching these cartoons and then your dad says, "Oh, these characters were around when I was a kid." And I couldn't even wrap my mind around the idea that my dad was my age once upon a time. You know what I'm saying? So these were artifacts to me. That was a very big moment for me. I do want to talk about this more at length later in the show, but Fred Pierce was a neighbor of mine growing up in northern New Jersey. Do you know Fred Pierce?
Yes. Tell the audience about Fred Pierce. Go ahead.
For the listeners who may not know the name, he is the current publisher of Valiant Comics, and when I first met him, he was the COO, I believe, of Wizard Magazine. So I remember riding my bike to his house. He lived a block away, and he would give me a stack of comics. So that was very important for me.
Wow,
as well.
that's great.
I interned at Wizard Magazine. I always read Wizard. There was definitely a time where Wizard was more important to me than any superhero comic. I just liked the price guide.
Yeah. Well, early on, with my podcast in 2006, somebody asked Alan Heinberg on the Wizard letter page, "What are your favorite comic book podcasts?" And I was in the group of 3 that he mentioned, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm in Wizard Magazine. This is amazing." Honestly, that was that was on my I wouldn't call it a bucket list, but in terms of. Oh, that's cool. Recognition. I like that. That's fantastic. And it was only 2 years into Word Balloon. So, yeah, that was pretty neat.
John, that is how I feel right now on your show. Validation.
That's very kind, Isaac. I appreciate that.
But the big thing, the big comic that connected with me, because I would pick up comics, at the stationery store or wherever, drugstore, supermarket, back before the direct market and all that kind of stuff. But the big comic that really resonated with me, and I've told you this, I think every time I've seen you at a comic convention, was Ultimate Spider-Man. That was the big comic that I read that changed how I read comics and how I approached drawing. And Mark Bagley is a huge influence on my style, which is not a surprise to anyone who's ever seen my art before, right? I mean, I read that book religiously, and I was such a mark for that. That book was written just for me because I was in middle school going into high school when that book came out.
Sure.
And so there's Spider-Man and Peter Parker is just learning how to talk to Mary Jane as I'm just trying to learn how to talk to girls. And it's really like the first 7 issues, he's not even in his costume. Right. And so that was so different than anything I had ever read. That was the beginning of the quote unquote decompression style of writing, or writing for the trade, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
That was huge for me. And then after that was Runaways and Ultimates, and we were off to the races. So that was when I wanted to become a comic book creator. Was that.
Can I ask, as a reader back then, because you're right, that was the start of the decompression era, but there were still comics that didn't, write for the trade and maybe did shorter stories and things like that. Could you tell the difference? And did you like the longer stories? I'm interested in this.
Oh yeah, I mean, big time. And the difference was so obvious, right? I mean, everybody could tell the difference, and I loved it because I loved the dialogue and I loved the snappy little, not talking about the plot type stuff. I was also reading Amazing Spider-Man at the time, which was written by J. Michael Straczynski, and it was drawn by John Romita Jr. And I love that for very different reasons. And that was a much faster paced story. And, Mark Millar was the big, like, explosion happens on page 2 writer. And so I was reading all of it, but for my money, it was just, because a lot of people who read Spider-Man love Peter Parker and his storylines more than the Spider-Man adventures.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And I loved Spider-Man. I'm sorry, I love Peter Parker. I related to Peter Parker. I related to especially Ultimate Peter Parker. And you see that in all of the movies, and you see that in Spider-Man Homecoming is the DNA of that movie is Ultimate Spider-Man, right?
Sure.
So
well, that's original Stan too, man. I mean, I remember reading in Origins of Marvel Comics, they had the origin and then they had like a different story. And one of the best scenes that I remember, it had nothing to do with the main plot of whatever villain was in there. I think it was the Shocker, ironically, mentioning Spider-Man Homecoming. But there's this great scene of Gwen and Peter and Flash. And Flash had gone to war, obviously. And even back in, like during the Vietnam years and stuff, Flash went to war. And he comes back, and Peter's hassling him about something. And Flash isn't jerky to Peter, but walks away angry. And Gwen just chews out Peter. And she's like, that guy, unlike you, it went off to fight for his country and is worried about the well-being of people. What have you ever done? And obviously the irony of that conversation. Yeah. And it's great. I mean, that's a great Parker moment where he's just like, he can't do anything. And yeah, man, no, it's stuff like that. I get it. And so, yeah, it was always in, you gotta give Stan credit. It was always in Spider-Man's story's DNA to be, have that be a very important part of the story.
That's Stan Lee. Pretty good idea, man. Pretty good writer.
Who knew?
Well, with all of the decompression stuff that happened in the early 2000s, what were your thoughts on it? When
I liked it too. Well, it was a different approach. It's what got me back into comics. I kind of spent your formative years were probably my struggling trying to make money years, and so I couldn't afford to buy comics. So I'd only buy Kingdom Come or Marvels when they came out, things like that, and also. God, at Marvel, the writing just really went to shit in the late 90s. I won't deny it. And I mean, there's a reason why there are so many boxes of, dollar comics these days, and a lot of it is 90s material. The writing sucked. Yeah. The art was more important than the writing. And that's okay. I mean, it is kind of a seesaw every now and then. But, all of a sudden we started getting really good, interesting writing. And Bendis with Ultimate Spider-Man and Powers... And the No Man's Land story arc in Batman was a very important thing that brought me back to regular reading of comics and things like that. Ed Brubaker's writing was like that. So Rucka, Brubaker, I mean that generation, and Mark Miller and everything. Yeah, they kind of brought me in full time again, and it was around 1999. that's when I came back, and I'm like, oh, interesting things are happening. When Kevin Smith was writing Daredevil with Quesada.
Yeah, that was big for me too. And I was reading Wizard magazine, like I said, throughout this whole time. So, and they had the top 10 writers, top 10 artists.
Yep.
That was the Bible for me. So I would read that, and then I would pick up whatever Wizard magazine told me to pick up. And so that was Kevin Smith and Phil Hester on Green Arrow.
Sure.
And so I would get that. Yeah. And those are my formative years. That's what got me into comics, is Wizard magazine, Bendis, those cartoons. That's what turned me into the person that I am now.
And you wanted to do art? Did you want to, because maybe even reading Wizard magazine, did you see this as a viable career?
Yeah, I wish that I could say like, I always wanted to do it. It wasn't that conscious, I think. I think that it was just one of those things I always just did, and then it just sort of evolved. I think everybody draws, right? Everybody's drawing in school, and then some people stop. Right. And I was the kids that didn't stop. And then I became more and more interested in comics. I think I always wanted to do something creative. I considered animation when I was younger, and music video director. I wanted to be a music video director. I was super inspired by Michel Gondry, right? And
hilarious. Sure.
Yeah. But really, comics is the thing that took off for me. I became such a fan. It became such a lifestyle for me. But that's where I ended up. Yeah.
That's cool, man. And what school did you go to again?
School of Visual Arts.
Oh.
Yeah. And the big draw there is that your teachers are all working professionals. So the coolest thing about SVA is that my foundation teacher was Klaus Janson, comic book legend from Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil the End and several other things. How amazing is that, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
He has a lot of he's got a couple of issues in Batman Nightfall. I didn't even know that until recently.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. And his Punisher run, and Klaus is and really it's so funny you say Daredevil the End. I mean, I think back to him and Frank doing certainly Dark Knight. And actually, it was Mazzucchelli who did Born Again.
Yeah, Mazzucchelli was my senior year.
Was Klaus inking Mazzucchelli on Born Again?
I think Mazzucchelli always inked himself, didn't he?
Isn't that like? Look, I'm gonna have to go. Well, and certainly his collaborations with John Romita Jr., of course.
Yeah, yeah.
And Klaus is amazing, man. And as I was telling you before we started recording, finally got to meet him face to face at the last New York. I'm so glad that I did. Great guy, and I'm really looking forward to eventually having him on Word Balloon. It would be my great pleasure to talk to Klaus Janson.
Oh, he's one of the greatest guys that I've ever met in comics in my life. One of the greatest guys, and he's just always been so kind, so humble and helpful and generous with his time and advice. For me, and we've maintained a relationship. We still get dinner now and again.
Wow!
Since I graduated in 2010, and I see him at the cons. And he lives in the city. I live in Queens. So he was one of my teachers. Phil Jimenez was one of my teachers.
I love Phil. Phil's a good man. Absolutely.
He's another guy you should get on your show.
Oh no, Phil's been on. It's been a while, but I've had Phil on. He's a terrific guy. I like Phil a lot. Wow.
You want to know something really cool about taking class with him? He was the life drawing teacher. And so
cool.
One week he split the class up into 4 groups, and he was drawing Spider-Man at the time with Dan Slott. Dan Slott was just starting his 45-year run on Spider-Man. And he said to us, okay, whoever draws the best based on this criteria, I'm going to draw you in a crowd scene in Amazing Spider-Man issue whatever. And I was in the group that won, and so he drew me and a couple of my friends. And you can see me afraid of Skrulls in one of the issues of Phil Jimenez Spider-Man comic.
That's
one of the
fantastic. That's great, man. Isn't that the best compliment? Because I am proud to say that everyone from Francis Manipal to Sarah Pacelli and Stuart Immonen. I mean, they've all had moments of drawing me, and I'm like, oh God, that's excellent. And of course, Principal Suntress, for Christ's sake. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Stuart Immonen drew you in what? He's my favorite artist of all time.
It didn't look like me, but his name was. It was the first appearance of the secret origin of
of Principal Suntress, it didn't look like me, but yeah, the first time you see a Principal Suntress, he had kind of a widow's peak, and he was a thin guy. And then I believe Sarah took over. Then I think it was Sarah, and I'm forgetting. Yeah. There was another artist that drew me as well during Ultimate Spider-Man and everything. And then of course even Somni put me in a little cameo with Miles, which was terrific. As Principal.
All right, well, if I'm ever put in those books, I'll continue the tradition. We'll get you canon. Yeah.
That'd be lovely. I greatly accept. Go on.
You need an action figure. Yeah.
No, Clark Gregg took my part in the animated series because they had A.G. Coulson was covering as the principal of Peter's high school, and that's how he was able to keep tabs on Spider-Man. And it was very cute. A lot of word listeners like, "Hey, man, that should be you," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, it should." So, but no, it's pretty funny, man. But anyway, that's fantastic, though. And yeah, Phil, what a great, another amazing artist, Phil Jimenez, and a great writer as well. Jesus.
Oh yeah, he's the best. And he's got the new Wonder Woman Black Label book coming out with Kelly Sue DeConnick, which is going to be one of the greatest Wonder Woman stories.
That'll be amazing. Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So that was SVA. It was amazing. And I mentioned David Mazzucchelli was my senior portfolio teacher, and that guy is an artistic genius.
Yes,
you know.
Sir. Yes, sir.
So, I mean, you want to talk about intimidating classes at SVA. I mean, that's, that one's tough. But he was incredible, and I learned so much from all of them, and there were only 3 of them. You know, I mean, every teacher was amazing. Joey Cavallari.
That's great.
Joey Cavallari is one of the greatest, smartest, funniest guys in comics, and he is editing he edited most recently the Batman Elmer Fudd crossover, which was
Tom King's story.
One of my favorite top Batman comics of all time.
Absolutely, man. Very funny. That's awesome. No, Joey's been a long time. I always thought of Joey at DC and Ralph Macchio at Marvel as being kind of contemporaries and guys that were always there, and you know, like had a great long time there and everything. Go on.
No, that's it. That's SVA.
Okay.
So and then I graduated in 2010, so that's almost a decade ago at this point.
That's insane. So what happened between then and Postal? Because Postal is when I first became aware of you.
Yeah. So I graduated SVA, and I could not get a job in art, which everybody was right. I should not have gotten a job in art. So all those art directors were correct. I was not ready. So I worked at Dylan's Candy Bar. I worked retail for about a year and a half. And I did a couple of small freelance things here and there. I remember I did a shirt for Wiz Khalifa. Do you know that rapper, John?
No, I don't, but that's fantastic. Go on.
You might be after your time.
Exactly.
He's popular on YouTube.com.
All right, there you go. That's fine.
I know you're throwing out these Gilligan Island references. I'm like, Wiz Khalifa? But the kids will know. And so I was doing a couple of shirts here and there, and every one of those projects, I'm like, oh, this is going to change my life forever. See you nerds on the other side. But nothing really stuck. You know, I was just really just trying hard, trying to get anything off the ground, and it wasn't really working. But I did get a job in a very roundabout way. I met some random guy at a comic book convention, and he was promoting a comic, but he had a storyboarding studio in Florida and California, and he flew me out to LA. So, John, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm still here.
And so I flew out to LA, and I was there for 3 years doing storyboards. So if you've ever seen the Flo, the Progressive Insurance spokesperson, there's a pretty good chance that was our studio. So I did a lot of those Coors Light, whatever. You've seen Mad. You know what it's like.
Sure.
And every day of those 3 years, I was trying to get comics off the ground. So I was just knocking on doors, doing sample pages, doing fan art, emailing editors, going to comic conventions, just trying to make it work until finally Top Cow had a talent search contest. It must have been 2012 or 2013. And I lost that year. But the second year that I applied, I won.
Oh,
and
wow.
that led... So the winner of drawing those 9 pages, if you're chosen, Matt Hawkins, the publisher of Top Cow, great guy, he put me on a book called Artifacts number 38. Yeah, Artifacts.
That was during their big event series and everything. Correct. Yeah. Ron Mars, didn't Ron Mars write Artifacts?
Yeah, in the beginning. Yeah. As the series went on, I jumped on at issue 38 for only a one shot. They put us there, 2 issues before it was canceled. So we were there to kind of close out the series with other Top Hunt people. And after that one issue, they offered me a 4-issue miniseries called Postal. And so for 3 months, I did 3 issues. So I would do storyboarding from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then from around 8 p.m. to maybe 4 a.m., I'm drawing a page of Postal. Wow. And then drive home, sleep for like 5 hours, and do the whole thing again the next day. My health fell out of whack.
Oh my God.
My life was upside down. I was miserable. But sometimes, that's what you got to do to make comics work, right? So I got 3 issues in the can, and issue number 1 of this 4-issue miniseries with Matt Hawkins co-writing with Brian Hill, famous household name Brian Hill, right? This is first thing. Friend of the show, I know. Writing on Titans, which we were just talking about.
That's true. That's right. That's very true.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm really, really proud of him. But this was his first thing, and this was my first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first issue came out, and it sold real well. It sold surprisingly well.
Yeah.
And in fact, it got like a couple of printings. It got some TV interest. And so there was enough interest and there was enough goodwill that Matt announced that he was going to extend the 4-issue miniseries to at least 25 issues. And the day that was announced was the day I quit my storyboarding job and I flew back to New York. And I've been drawing comics since.
Attaboy. You see, there you go. And look at you and Brian. Excellent work that that has come since. But yeah, man, no, that Postal. How long ago did we meet? How many years ago?
Oh God,
5?
well, there's no way you remember, but I met you pre-Postal days. I mean, I remember meeting you and being like, just John Sunches, I'll listen to your podcast,
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks, man. That's very nice. And I honestly, but yeah, when Postal, because like we said, I love Matt. I will confess, I don't read a lot of what Top Cow puts out, and a lot of the Darkness and Witchblade. I have tremendous respect for all of that body of work. It just didn't speak to me. And that's why sometimes I really haven't had, like Mark Silvestri, who I just saw at C2E2. I love him. He's amazing, and I have tremendous respect for him. But I feel like that's like kind of a hole, and I don't know his work as well, so I haven't had him on yet. But Matt, I've really enjoyed talking to, and truly, like, phase 2 of Top Cow with things like Postal and the like that have come since. I just appreciate Matt's point of view. I think he's a really interesting publisher and creator as well. What was the thing about the religious? I forget what it was. Yeah, what was it called again?
The Tithe.
Yeah, the Tithe. That I'm like that is a great idea. That is really original, much like Postal. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, this is fresh, really interesting stuff.
Matt is an infinitely curious guy, and he's extremely smart. And he's one of those guys, we were talking about this earlier, he's one of those guys that sees where the industry is moving. He knows where the industry is going to be in 5 years, and he knows where the industry is going to be in 10 years. Brian Hill is one of those guys, too. And we were talking about, and just for the sake, so that we can loop in the audience, I mean, Jen Bartel is one of those people, and Katie Cook and Raina Telgemeier. These are brilliant people that are able to see beyond the fence. And Matt,
John Hickman is another one like that as well, by the way.
Oh, sure. But Matt not only has a very good sense of where the industry is and where the industry is moving, he's just always so curious, and he's always looking and reading science journals. He prides himself on being able to read and translate science journals years before mainstream media gets a hold of it. So he can translate that into his books like Think Tank and write about that. So Postal is actually based on a real life story. For readers for your listeners that are hearing about this book for the first time, the basic pitch is that it's a town full of criminals hidden by the FBI who have a second shot at life, and the experiment works for a few years until a dead body shows up and then the town falls apart like dominoes. And that is based on a true story that Matt was reading in some newspaper years ago, where criminals would flee to this haven and get reconstructive surgery on their faces, and they would create these new identities, and that was the kernel of the idea. And then the magic of Postal is when Brian Hill signed on to co-write, and Brian Hill is probably one of the best dialogue guys in the game right now. He's one of the best characterization guys. I mean, he gets character, and he gets character development better than anyone. And so the mix of them writing that book together was really something special, something really magical. I'm just very lucky that was my first real substantial gig. And then Brian, of course, has exploded since then, and from that, he went on to do Totally Awesome Hulk and Ultimate Spider-Man and Detective Comics when James Tynion left the title, and Batman and the Outsiders is coming out, American Carnage, I'm sure I'm missing a couple, Titans, Ash vs. Evil Dead. I mean, the guy is having a moment. So
absolutely. Killmonger, too.
Killmonger, of course, yeah. So it was really exciting to work with Brian, and now it's exciting to see him rise as a friend and as a peer. I mean, that's one of the coolest things about working in comics. Yeah, for sure.
No, I'm looking forward to as his screenwriting career takes off, but I'm a little nervous because I thought I read that he wants to get out of comics.
I hear that, and that makes me nervous too. Look, Brian, a lot like Matt, which is the reason why they're such good friends. They're both infinitely curious. You know, I'm one track, John. I want to do comics. Nothing else. It's comics or bust. That storyboarding job, you know how lucky I was to have that job? I hated it. Because it wasn't drawing comics.
I hear you,
it was a great job drawing, but for me, if there aren't laser beams and capes, I don't care, you know? But
how about if Flo is fighting zombies and doing pictures? Can we do that? Is that possible?
Yeah, exactly. But Brian is doing photography right now. If you're following on social media, he's venturing into that. He makes music. He wants to direct. I mean, he wants to do every single thing. Yes. So, and if he wants to stay in comics, he's going to be the biggest name in comics in the history of the medium. If he wants to do photography, he's going to be the biggest photographer ever. If he wants to direct, he's just so smart. He's so curious. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see where he is a few years from now. But he's got great stuff coming up, and I cannot wait for Batman and the Outsiders. It's going to be amazing.
I agree with all of that, and no, he's a tremendous guy. And again, wouldn't have occurred to me to interview him if it hadn't been for you. And you're like, you got to talk to this guy, and I'm like, God, Matt's been kind, and he's been giving me the Postal trades. I really got to sit down and read them. And then I'm like, oh wow, look at this. And then, it was just good timing when he did that short detective run that was kind of his backdoor Outsiders pilot and everything.
Right.
And I'm like, this is great. Right. I'm like, let's, and truly, like you said, he's such an interesting, curious person, much like Matt, and that's why I enjoy talking to them. And, actually, I should really, and it reminds me to have both of those guys on as well in the months ahead. God, again, the dream for me would be to be able to do Word Bulletin full time and do this like 5 days a week and be like, all right, let's talk to these guys. Because truly, I raised my head and realized, oh God, I told that creator, let's talk, and that was 2 years ago. Oh, Jesus, let me get him on. I mean, and that just happens. It's just the way it is and everything. So, much like our own conversation that took a couple years before now, it's finally happening. So,
yeah, I know.
So Postal, obviously a big success for you. What were you doing before starting to work for DC then?
Postal and DC overlapped. So,
that's right. Okay.
So I wrapped up. This is a fun story.
How many volumes of Postal are there? 4, 5?
7, 27 issues.
7 trades, 27 issues? Is that what you said? What did you say?
Yeah, that's right. And there's more coming. So Matt has season 2 of Postal coming. Brian is co-writing with him again.
Oh, wow.
And Raphael Ienco is going to be the artist on that. Raphael Ienco did a one-shot with Matt called Postal Mark. So it was a one-shot that just focused on Mark. And it was amazing. And season 2 is going to be incredible. I saw the first issue at C2E2 where I saw you last in Chicago this year, and it looked incredible. I can't wait. I'm excited to read Postal as a fan. I'm tremendously proud of the work that Brian, Matt, and I, and big shout out to K. Michael Russell, our colorist, who was a big creative voice in that. His colors were just incredible. He colored
Agreed.
A little bit more than half of the series, and I just love working with him. I've worked with him on several other projects before and since. And so I'm just immensely proud of that book. That was my first tattoo, is a Postal tattoo. Yeah. I'm very happy with that.
That's excellent.
But, yeah, I know. It's very cool. You should get a word balloon tattoo, John. We'll work on that.
No, dude, I'm telling you, I know there's so many. It's so funny because, yes, certainly, and again, showing the age difference of us and everything. You see, you got to understand, man, my parents and their friends were all World War II vets. So I saw all of their great, which I'm sure were great-looking tattoos back in the 40s. By the 70s, they were all like, the eagle looked like, a pigeon that was like on its deathbed or whatever. And just they shrunk and they were gnarly looking. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want that. So no tats. I'm sorry. I won't be getting it. What's that?
When I look awful in 15 years, it's not going to be because of the tattoo, John. It's going to be a whole slew of problems. Yeah. I'm not worried about that.
No, it's okay, man. No, and again, I don't begrudge anybody for getting tats. I think it's a lot of my friends are tatted up and everything that are younger, of course. But and a few of my contemporaries. But yeah, no, it's like no.
Well, hey, listen, you'll look great with the tattoo. Don't worry.
Thanks, don't worry. I'm gonna wake up with one exactly, man. It's gonna be like in I forget which bad comedy and stuff where like the guy's back is all tatted up and everything. That'd just be Isaac's head on my back or something like that.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, I definitely approve of this.
So what were your tell me about your early DC stuff, and then we'll get into what you've just done recently and everything.
So DC, going into DC was very similar to linking up with Top Cow. So DC had a talent program, much like Top Cow. So I'm the contest guy. I'm the guy that gets in through contests.
That's fantastic, man. No, that's great. What character did you draw for the contest?
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you about this.
Yeah,
just to back up and give a little bit more background.
Oh, sure. No, please.
So DC had this talent program, which was headed by Bobby Chase and Sarah Miller.
Cool.
Two extraordinarily brilliant people. Bobby Chase has been working in comics since forever, and Sarah is so new and fresh, and together they're this brilliant duo. So they started this talent development program a couple of years ago, and the idea was to bring in artists and have lectures and shape them up, get everybody on the same page, create relationships between creatives and editorial and the law people and money people and this and that. So it was really, really cool. The first year was done in-house, and they just invited – it was not public. It wasn't something to apply to. So it was just – they invited a bunch of already working for DC established talent. So the first year – I'm not going to be able to name all of them, but I know like Cameron Stewart was in there, Jorge Jimenez, Megan Hetrick, Joelle Jones. So already big heavy hitters that have only become more famous and more established since that first year. So that was.
Can I ask real fast? Was it like a paid internship, or was this purely an internship? And again, I don't mean to get into your financial business, but I'm sure people are interested in terms of how it worked and everything.
No, I'll tell you everything. Yeah, no, let's talk about this for 7 hours. So it wasn't like an internship. It was more like
an apprenticeship or something. Go on.
Not really maybe sort of. So the way that it breaks down, I'll catch you up. So the second year I applied, and a lot like Top Cow, I lost the second year. The third year I applied, and I win. And I'll walk you through this. So all of your questions will become clear in couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So the process. The process was, and they're going to invite you, and we don't know. So you know as much as I do at this point, right? So I'm like, I know that we're going to fly out to DC. I know that we're going to meet editors and have lectures. But beyond that, I don't really know what it's going to be like or how the money is going to break down or anything like that, right? I just want to work at DC so bad, I'll just do anything. And Postal is wrapping up, and it's time to make that move. It's time to try my hand at another company and see what I can do. So So you have to apply, you have to have a resume, you have to have a cover letter, letters of recommendation from other comic book creators. Mine was Edwin Huang, with whom I went to school, and our teacher was one Klaus Janson, who wrote another very nice letter of recommendation for me. So I have that as my packet, and then you have to do 3 sample pages. So my 3 sample pages were from a Jeff Johns script. It was Superman in high school, first getting his powers.
Oh, cool.
And first getting X-ray vision and this and that. Is from Superman Origin or something like that.
Yeah, Secret Origin. Yeah.
Originally drawn by Gary Frank.
Yes.
I mean, imagine trying to redraw Gary Frank pages. You want to talk intimidation? That's a nightmare. So, but that's what I did, and that was very much playing to my strengths because, as I mentioned earlier, I was a big mark for Ultimate Spider-Man, and I thought I was going to grow up and draw Ultimate Spider-Man issue 500 with, whatever, or Runaways or Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. Like that was
cool.
was my stuff. That's what I wanted to do. I loved, coming of age, awkward characters. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a big show for me.
Sure.
So that's what I always thought that I wanted to do, which at this point in my career, I didn't really have a whole lot of that. A whole lot of examples of that, but I knew that's where my strengths lay. So I drew that Clark Kent in Smallville storyline, opting that over Batman fighting Catwoman on a rooftop, or whatever the other sample pages were. I knew that was going to be my forte, and so I drew that. That got accepted, and then from there I made it to round 2. Round 2 is 3 more sample pages. This time it was a Pat Gleason script, or Pat Gleason drawn script.
Okay.
Peter Tomasi was the writer.
Yeah.
So Ian Wayne on that Talia al Ghul island, running around fighting man-bats, ninja man-bats, right? So that's sort of like what I wanted to do mixed with elements of Postal, because it's a big fight scene in the moonlight, right? I wanted to show that I could do action too. And when you draw those 3 pages, then you have a Skype interview with Klaus Janson, my teacher from SVA,
Sure.
and Andy Kuber, right?
Wow.
And they're both, oh my God, it was amazing.
That's
the
great.
first thing, and I'm sweating. And the first thing Klaus asks me when he doesn't even say hi, I just see his face pop up on my screen, and he goes, "You nervous?" And the 2 of them, who are notoriously critical, and I don't think they would mind me saying that. The idea is that they're going to critique your pages and tear you down, and then you have to revise the pages and send them back in. I think that DC wants to see how well you deal with criticism.
Certainly.
And revision.
Yes.
That's very important for this line of work.
Of course.
Yeah. So we do that. I do that. I send those pages in. And then it's, you're waiting for a week, you're sweating for a week. And then I got the email from Sarah Miller saying, "Congratulations, you won. Here's $500 to fly out. We're going to put you up in this Burbank hotel," which, John Suntress, it was the best hotel I've ever stayed in my life. It had a kitchen and a fridge, the biggest TV I've ever seen. I didn't know they made TVs that big. It was amazing. Right? Cookies on the pillow with with Red Squad stickers on them. Oh, it was awesome. Oh, it was the best. And so the way this broke down is you go in the first day, and I do want to shout out my talent program brethren, because we're all friends. We talk to each other on Facebook all the time. We've got our little Facebook group where we just chime in and we're like, "Oh, I miss you guys." So it was Domo Dominic Stanton. You can find his work on House of Whispers, the Neil Gaiman vehicle. And Max Rayner, who came in already ready for prime time. I mean, the guy was hired to draw Superwoman before the program was over,
Wow.
And before he came into the program, he had already drawn for like the Avengers and Battlestar Galactica. I mean, the guy we were like, "Why are you here?" Anyway, so they're Priscilla Prachedas, amazing artist. You can find her on Rat Queens. Anneke, the most badass woman you've ever met. She just kicks doors down with her leather jacket and listens to heavy metal. She was mostly known for, or mostly is known for, I suppose, Bombshells with Marguerite Bennett and does amazing work. And then Amankai Bustamante Nahalpin. Oh, he's got a very long name. I just butchered that. But Amankai was my table mate at New York Comic Con, and you met him there.
Oh, cool.
So,
yeah, man. Good dude. Absolutely. And I love his work. Yeah.
Oh, he killed it on Nightwing recently. He's got some Vertigo stuff coming out that looks incredible. You can follow them all on Instagram. They're killing it. They're all just so amazing. I'm so proud and inspired by them. So that was my group, and we became friends very quickly. And we all came from different backgrounds. So I was from New York, Domo, Washington, D.C., Brazil, Argentina, UK, or England. And we all flew out from all around the world and it was awesome. It was so cool. So the morning was lecture time, and the lecture was Klaus Janson and Andy Kubert, how to lay out a page, the most effective way to compose a cover, black spotting. And as the days went on, it became less and less formal, because we just all developed this rapport. And so by the end of the program, we were just like gossiping, It was, Klaus would just be like, here's how to negotiate contracts. This is the stuff they don't know that I'm telling you, stuff like that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Now, wait, was this a week? How long of a period was this?
It was a little bit more than a week. So it was I think around 10 days, something like that. And the coolest part was when Andy Kubert would take out his pages and then would take out Joe Kubert pages.
Sure.
And I don't know if you've ever seen Joe Kubert pages in person, but oh man, that'll make your mind explode, just seeing like the decades long confidence of hatching marks.
Sure.
Amazing. It's amazing.
I bet. No, honestly, one of my great regrets is not getting Joe on the show. But thank God Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti and Paul Mounts introduced me to Joe, and I got to have a couple conversations with him. And, oh, man, truly, what a great life. And I'm sorry I didn't get to know him better and have an opportunity to really dig in to his perspective, because what a genius of a creator. Absolutely.
Were you starstruck when you met him?
Thankfully, because of my time in sports radio and interviewing Michael Jordan and Sammy Sosa and, the great Bulls of the 90s and various athletes of the 90s, I'm able to put that in the back of my head and keep my cool.
Right. Yeah.
But truly, yes. All Joe's generation and the Silver Age guys and the Bronze Age guys, they were my storytellers, man. Just like you being a little kid watching Batman, the animated series. It was the Elliot Maggins and the Cary Bateses and the Marty Pascos and the, from a writer's standpoint. And then, Kubert and Walt Simonson and, just amazing artists and Neil Adams and Steranko and all these guys. So, no, I'm very giddy when Howard Chaykin, it's always embarrassing when I have Howard on Word Balloon, and he knows it. I'm like a yapping little puppy around his, just around him and stuff. And I do. I love the fact that, Howard has become an acquaintance and a guy that we could talk not only comics, but just, all right, what are you reading? What are you listening to? And it's like, let me tell you, Howard. So.
Yeah, no, Howard is a great interviewee. Your episodes with Howard are fantastic, because that guy does not care about niceties at all.
No,
anymore.
He doesn't. No.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. That's so cool, because you have these very, very candid talks. I know, it's amazing.
No, and he's been through the ringer, and he's much like it sounds like Klaus in terms of the guys that have seen it all. And again, you reminded me as we were talking about my interview with Phil Hester, and Joe Kubert's quote of I've seen the end of comics like 7 times. I've been in this business since I was 13. And it's true. It's like, again, they've seen it all. They're not impressed with the new thing. And again, they understand how the business works, and they've managed to, have these decades-long careers of doing what they want and everything. And I love talking to Howard. Howard's a maverick, and I like that about him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you grew up looking at Joe Kubert books.
Oh, God,
I'm growing up looking at his son's.
Right, Adam and Andy, absolutely, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so that's me, and then Andy Kubert's amazing. And he's on top of his game now.
Yeah.
But he was showing us Batman pages and Ultimate X-Men pages inked by Danny Mickey. It's wizardry, you know. It doesn't look. I can't comprehend how people could. Anyway, I could spend the rest of the interview talking about Andy Kubert's line work, but anyway.
Is Andy real fast? Is Andy working with Tom on the Superman stuff for Walmart?
Yeah, they did the boxing story.
Right. Well, I've been reading the whole run and everything. You know, Tom was kind enough to send me a bunch of the issues leading up to our talk. Wow. And oh my God, no, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. We were looking at his Frank Miller inspired. He was working on Dark Knight 3, or he had just wrapped up Dark Knight 3.
Wow,
so he was talking about his thought process there. Yeah, I think that like Frank Miller really opened a new door artistically for Andy at the time, and so he was talking about his confidence with composition and use of negative space and this and that. It's just really incredible.
That's excellent.
So those lectures would be the first part of the day. That would be the morning, and then in the afternoon, we would meet a different editorial group. And for your listeners who may not know this, because I didn't know this until I was actually there, the DC editorial is split into groups. So there's the Batman group. Batman group handles all the Gotham City books. Batwoman, Nightwing, Robin, and of course Batman, Catwoman, what have you.
Sure.
There's the Superman group doing all the Superman books and everything related. There's the Special Projects group, and they do Justice League Injustice, you know, the Mortal
Titans and stuff like that, yeah.
The Titans, or like a cereal box giveaway comics, or that kind of stuff. And then so that would be the afternoon, and sometimes they would sprinkle in these moments where we would take a tour and see the library, and so we would see the first issue of Wonder Woman from, you know, the 40s, and all this memorabilia from yesteryear, the stuff that you would not believe even exists, like these prize artifacts. And the library at DC is essentially a museum. We had a studio lot tour where they showed us all the Warner Brothers, you know, because DC's in Burbank.
Right,
so
right.
From the window, you see the Animaniacs Tower, and you see like where they filmed a whole bunch of Batman movies, the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton backlot that they created. This is just incredible, you know?
Sure.
And the best part of this is Sarah Miller and Bobby Chase. They said to us, all right, I know we have this itinerary. And they said, all right, I know that you have a portfolio review coming up with Jim Lee. Don't get your hopes up. He's a very busy man. We had him listed last year for that talent program, but he wasn't able to make it. So, yes, he is there, but just know that things may have to change. All right, so Wednesday comes around, and we have our meeting with Jim Lee, and we're just having the best time. We're in an office with him, and he's like going through our portfolios, and he's giving us reviews. He say, "Oh, this angle might be more effective if you try it like this. Have you considered the lighting if you do this?" And he's drawing on. He's like, "Anybody have paper? Anybody have paper?" We look in the cabinet. There are these paper plates. So he's sketching with Sharpie on paper plates, and then of course he leaves, and we're all splitting up the paper plates. I have a paper plate with Jim Lee's Sharpie scribbles. He scribbled like a Joker on mine. It's gorgeous.
That's
obviously.
Fantastic.
It's on my bulletin board. And we were having such a good time. He didn't make it to all of our portfolios. So he goes, "What are you guys doing tomorrow? I'll just hang out with you guys tomorrow." He hung out with us the next day, and he's just going through our portfolios. He took us out to dinner that first night.
Wow.
And he was telling us about his X-Men days. So here's the captain of the DC ship, and he's telling us things like how to navigate the waters as a freelance artist, just giving us this really candid advice. It was incredible.
That's great to hear.
It was one of the most experiences of all time. And so, but the idea was to create these relationships with these editors because ostensibly they want to work with us. This wasn't one of those things because we were all worried like, oh, is it going to be like a Survivor type deal where we got to vote each other off the island or whatever. It wasn't that at all. It was very inviting. It was very kind and generous, and it was amazing. It was what you fantasize comic books are going to be like when you're a kid fantasizing about working in comics,
That's terrific. That's really great to hear because I think a lot of freelancers before they reach this point, and I do want to hear more of the story, but the point of, I don't think they realize the disciplines of a monthly deadline and having to work with colorists and editors and who have input and are going to tell you, well, no, you got to redo it and things like that. And it's important to learn those skills if you are going to be successful at a DC or a Marvel. So I'm really glad to hear it's as involved as it is, but please continue.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. Who said this? Sana Amanat said this. Sana Amanat said, anybody can draw a cool-looking Batman. The job is, can you draw a cool Batman on Thursday at 1 a.m.?
Right.
That's the job.
Right.
That's it.
There you go, man. No, I hear you, man. And that's the thing. And that's why sometimes the people that don't have the jobs yet, it's like, hey, hire more people. And it's like, yeah, but it isn't just being able to draw cool. Like you said, it's having that discipline of deadline comics. And I think not only pros, but also critics sometimes, and the things that they nitpick on, it's like, this is deadline work. This is work that has to get done to be on time. And, it's like those are as important factors as it is drawing the shit out of something and making it look cool. So, but please continue.
Oh. No, that's everybody, like when before you get into school and you learn how to make a comic, you're just like, oh, this artist can't draw feet. And then you actually make a comic and you're like, that artist is amazing, So you just gotta, it's one of those, I'm not saying that every comic book reviewer has to know how to make a comic, but it is one of those things that for me personally, I'll just keep it on myself. I had a newfound respect. I sort of like see beyond the matrix, so everything is, I'm a little bit more sensitive when it comes to reading comics these days. So that was the experience. And then, towards the end of this, so they would take us out to dinner, they would take us out to lunch, and Bob Harris and Dan DiDio were there, and they're like these hearty laughing guys from Queens, and they've got these stories, and they're laughing so hard the room is shaking. I mean, it was incredible. So I was talking to Bobby Chase, and Bobby, one of the things that they ask about is, where do you see yourself in our company? What are the things and the projects that make you excited? What do you want to do? Right. And I said, I know that I've worked on Postal for a very long time, but the things that I'm very excited about are Ultimate Spider-Man. I loved Bendis growing up, and I always saw myself as doing something similar to that. I felt so embarrassed on the flight home, just like, why am I at DC talking about the #1 premier Marvel writer? And then the irony, of course, is that Bendis is at the time that I'm at that program, he's ironing out his contract details for switching sides. So, but Bobby said, was very interested in that, and she said, it's very interesting that you are talking about that because we have this new initiative, we have this new project that you might be a good fit for. I'm not sure. Can you send me more examples of your young adult stuff? And so I had this book that was that never got beyond the pitch stage, but I had worked on it off and on with writers Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly of Star Trek fame these days. And that was the book that I wanted to do. That was the showcase of the kind of stuff that I felt was my niche. And so I sent that in, and about a month later I got a call about Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale, written by Lauren Miracle. So that brings us up to date.
Indeed. Yeah. Yes, indeed. So this is one of the DC Inc. books, and when's it coming out? Or is it already
Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale comes out on May 7th.
Oh,
that's
great.
A Tuesday.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because I saw the Mara book is out, obviously. It came out, as we're recording it, the Mara book came out this week.
It came out this week. That's very exciting. I had a very big launch. People seem to be digging it a lot, which I'm totally stoked about. And in the back matter of that Mara book, you can see I think a 15-page preview of Under the Moon.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, it's sitting, shame on me, it's sitting on my Kindle right now. I should have, I wish I had known that. I would have checked it out more directly. But that's great. So what can you tell us about Under the Moon?
I can tell you that it's going to be the free comic book day offering on Saturday, May 4th.
Fantastic.
So we can get that preview. And so the idea behind this is New York Times bestselling writer Lauren Miracle and a whole bunch of young adult writers are jumping into the fray at DC Comics with their very prolific libraries and their fan bases, and they're bringing in new readers. to DC Comics, and this is the new introduction of these characters to a whole new generation of readers. And the idea of our imagining of Catwoman is she is a 14-year-old girl in high school. She has a crush on Bruce Wayne, the most popular person in Gotham, the most popular kid in school, and she has a very tumultuous home life, and she has to run away from home. And she links up with this new group of kids with whom she pulls heists. And so this is her coming into her own and becoming Catgirl. She's not yet Catwoman. So it's a 183-page graphic novel, and I'm very, very excited about the launch. So it's new, it's different. There's stuff that Lauren did that I've never seen in comics before. So as a comic book fan, I'm so excited about it. And I can't wait to see what the reaction is going to be.
That's fantastic, man. And I really, when they announced both the ink and the Zoom imprints, this is great because, this is hitting young readers and getting them excited about the characters at their level with smart writing. And it's, man, I've applauded every attempt at kids comics in their various incarnations, and it's like, yes, try this and make it right and everything. But this, it really sounds like ink and Zoom are the kind of things that would appeal to that audience and everything, as opposed to some of the other attempts in the past. And that's why, I'm happy for you and other of my friends that are working for Ink, and then Art and Franco are doing Superman of Smallville for Zoom. So that's terrific. And I think it's smart. I think it's really, really smart and a good way because, it's funny you mentioned the cartoons that got you excited about comics when you were a kid. For me, it was, they were in reruns when I was a kid. The old 67 Ralph Bashki Spider-Man and the Marvel superhero cartoons. And then, certainly Batman '66, the series, and even Adventures of Superman from the '50s, because they were constantly on reruns and everything. Right. And those were my first exposures to these characters. And then, again, just being, thank God, young enough or old enough that when comics were still a quarter and my allowance was 50 cents, I could buy 2 comic books a week. So that was, that was my, graduation from the cartoons. And this is great. And again, I love the reading programs that schools have. And I really think that, we've always had great books as we were growing up as kids and stuff. But truly, like the Renee Talgemeyers and the like, are really coming up with stuff that I think appeal to kids and get them excited about comics. So it's smart with DC's catalog to get them interested and make and retell the stories in a relatable way. So putting Selena Kyle in high school with Bruce Wayne, it's a no-brainer. It's a great idea.
Yeah, they have a very specific strategy. As the artist of the book, I'm not privy to all the finer points of the strategy, but it's very exciting. There seems to be it's a very deliberate plan that they're crafting, and I can't wait to see how it pans out. So we'll be in scholastic book fairs and libraries, and there are book reading plans for teachers and educators. So we'll see. And you mentioned cartoons and the influences, the things that got you into comics. So throughout the book, I tried to pay my respects to Batman lore and Catwoman history. So there are a lot of nods to Batman animated series and old Catwoman comics and artists that preceded me. So you'll be able to see, like, if there's a nursery school scene with kids playing with clay in the background, they're making a Matt Hagen clay face, right? And I put in the blimps. You got to put in the Gotham, the GCPD blimps. There's a scene where Bruce Wayne. Oh, I think this got covered up with a word balloon. I'm so bummed about this. But there's a clock in the back where Selena confronts Bruce Wayne about something, and the time is 10:48 a.m. Batman's parents were murdered in Crime Alley at 10:48 p.m. This is turbo nerd stuff.
That's awesome. But absolutely.
I was able to put in a Condiment King reference. Condiment King. Yeah. So we've got. I must have hit like a couple dozen references. I put Joelle Jones's Catwoman wedding dress in a bridal shop in the background.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Jesus.
Yeah. So it's very, very cool. So I can't wait to. I hope I get a couple of fans or readers tweeting me about it. We'll see.
That's excellent, man. That's wonderful. And again, so it comes out in May, and so the 15 pages that are in the back of Mara are what's going to be available for Free Comic Book Day.
Yes, that's correct.
That's cool. Yeah. That's great, man. That's wonderful. Is it a flip book? Are you with another story in as far as that goes, or is it just that story?
What do you mean?
The Free Comic Book Day, is it part of a flip book where it's half your story and then it's half another book?
Yeah, so it's I think it's mostly Under the Moon and Catwoman Tale, and then there are a few pages from Teen Titans Raven, drawn by Gabriel Piccolo, and Kami Garcia is the writer on that.
Cool.
And so you get a little short preview. That book comes out a month after ours, or maybe 2 months after ours, something like that. And but because Catwoman is coming out that week, that's most of the Free Comic Book Day offering. So you can get that at any comic book store across the nation on Free Comic Book Day. It's the first Saturday in May, and you can grab a copy of that.
Yeah, it's kind of that's part of my Word Balloon mission, is to have as many Free Comic Book Day creators on. So this is good, Isaac. You're helping me out with this, and I appreciate that.
Happy to.
Yeah, man. Well, no, it's I mean, obviously we all love Free Comic Book Day, and I'm really impressed with all the publishers and how they really do make a serious effort to have some cool stuff. I know Aftershock, my sponsor, is doing an Animosity book that Marguerite Bennett wrote and everything. So, it's cool. It's cool. And I think that's great. And that's a great opportunity to expose your stuff to hopefully a new audience and everything. And, certainly, again, being part of the Young Reader program, and like you said, Scholastic and some of the other ALA events and book expos that are geared towards librarians and teachers. That's been a pleasure to watch. I was at the ALA event in Chicago 2 years ago, and to watch teachers and librarians really be excited about comics, and that it's great, the acceptance that the format has now gained. And my favorite personal story about that is with my brother-in-law. And my youngest nephew was having trouble reading, and I was giving him comics. And my brother-in-law is a big jock and everything. And he's like, "Oh, man, no offense, but he's really more into sports." And I'm like, "Well, no offense, but he's reading these." And I go, "That's kind of the whole point, right? Is to get him to read." And God bless him, man. He took a second. He goes, "I'm really sorry. You're 100% right." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "No offense, it's cool." But yeah, I love that, man, because sometimes it's getting over that hump of, well, I don't necessarily want to raise a nerd, but then it's like, yeah, but you do want to raise like an intelligent reader, don't you? And it's like
someone who can,
right,
yeah,
and really, and that's the great thing, and it's, I'm thrilled by that, and that's what I hope. It's like, that as the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar told me when I said, you've made a bunch of nerds happy, knowing that you love this stuff as much as we do, and he's like, hey, man, we were the readers, we were the ones who were, our imaginations were spiked by this really interesting stuff and these great stories. And he goes, I'm happy to be one of those people. And it's like, all right, way to go, Kareem. Who knew?
So what was it like for you? Because you've seen different eras of comic books, and now it's this big mainstream acceptance.
John, you're old. Tell us. No, it is. It's seriously, man. It's fan.
Here's my question. What is it like being old?
Exactly.
But you've seen like comics go from this niche, like left of center, medium, and now it's like the biggest money maker in the world.
It's wonderful. My friend Rob Reiner Burnett, who is a YouTuber and used to be on Collider Videos, he calls it the post geek singularity, meaning that everyone is a geek now. Avengers Infinity War didn't become the sensation that it did just by the support of the nerds. And it's been fun working at my job and having, people come up and go, I've been watching The Flash. Can you explain this Reverse Flash to me? And I'm like, it'd be my pleasure. No problem. Whatever. Or, those kind of, truly Game of Thrones and all this stuff. No, it's fantastic. And it's interesting. And I wonder if part of it is this need to escape
and not escape reality. I mean, guys like, and I'm going to say it, Bill Maher, fuck you. I'm sorry. And I do. I really like Bill Maher on a lot of things, but he really doesn't understand and really sees it as kind of infantile in terms of the people that love comics and stuff. And maybe there's a portion of the audience that's like that. I don't believe it. I meet too many smart people that like comics. It's just fun. It's fun. I mean, and it's, again, maybe because life does get tough, that we need a kind of release and some good escapism. And it's something that all of us that grew up with it knew about and always appreciated. But I do think that, I think some people just like the idea of let's get away and escape into something a little more simple as far as black and white. You know who the heroes are, you know who the villains are. And truly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Then you get into the complexity of modern comics, as we've been talking about, things like decompression and the like. And now I can't even remember if that was even part of our on the record conversation or the hour and 15 minutes we talked before we started recording.
We're not anywhere near the pre-recording time that we did.
But it's. I mean, I'm giving you an essay answer to your question, but it's true. No, it's been fantastic, and it's one of the reasons why I started Word Balloon, 14 years ago, because it was like, hey, this is really becoming a thing beyond our small group of Wednesday warriors that are showing up at the comic book store. Like, everyone's really getting into this stuff now. Even, like I said, 14 years ago in 2005. So it's really been fun to watch. And I'm only more intrigued. And it's one of the reasons why I've continued the podcast. Because look at where we've come in the last 14 years. As far as acceptance and evolution and... God, I mean, I can't watch everything that's as far as movies and television. There's just too much, and it's a pleasure making time to make sure that I do watch Umbrella Academy and Captain Marvel and all the movies and Shazam coming up. It's funny you mentioned your father bringing down the box of comics. My big oh shit moment with my father in comic books was we were on a summer vacation, and the old Treasury edition comics, there was one with Shazam, and it was the white covered Shazam, Captain Marvel reprint, giant book. And my dad's like, oh, well, Captain Marvel, I used to read this when I was a kid. Do you want this? And I'm like, yeah, this would be great. And it was great. And he read it. I saw him reading it when I wasn't reading it. He goes,
oh, God,
and it was all a bunch of reprints of great 1940s Captain Marvel stories. And it was like, he's like, oh, this is fantastic. I love all this stuff. So, it's great. And certainly, my thoughts are about my father as we head into Shazam weekend this weekend and everything. It's pretty neat. It's pretty cool.
So what is it about superheroes that in this superhero comics, Marvel, DC stuff that appeals to you? What do you like about superheroes?
Again, I like the fact that the people that are writing and drawing them now grew up loving the original stuff, but that the storytelling has evolved. And, I mean, the Tom Kings and the Brian Bendises and the Brubakers and the Ruckas and, those are all the men. The Joel Joneses and certainly the Gail Simones and Kelly Sue DeConnicks and Kelly Thompsons. And, there's the Jody Hauser we mentioned before, who I'm a fan of her writing. I mean, it's great. I mean, that's the thing. I really think that they understand what made these things cool when we were kids. And they don't want to write simple stories. They want to write complex stories. I love the perspective that the foreign writers and guys from the UK, but also other countries as well, bring to their writing. People like James Robinson and Paul Cornell and certainly Mark Miller and Grant Morrison and their view of the American superhero. And what they read the same stories and they're fascinated, but they bring a different perspective. And they suddenly think of things that it never occurred to me before, and it's like, oh, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be talking to Paul Kupperberg before the week's out, and he's an old Doom Patrol writer from the 70s and stuff.
Okay, so that's good timing.
So I really want to know his opinion. Have you had a chance to see Doom Patrol yet?
I don't have any of the DC Universe stuff yet. No, it's on the list. It's on the list, and I want it.
It's amazing. It really. I mean, I'm sure you heard me and Brian talking about it on the last Bendis stage. It's. And I'm watching it slowly. I'm only 5 episodes in because I have a buddy who doesn't have DC Universe. So whenever we get together, we watch 1 or 2 episodes of Titans or now Doom Patrol, and he never read Doom Patrol. and it's funny because he really loves it too. And I'm beside myself because I'm like, you don't understand. This finally is I mean, with Flash and Arrow and Supergirl and all the various TV shows that have come out, this is the truest incarnation of a comic book on translated. I mean, obviously, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse certainly is up there as well. But good Lord, from a live-action standpoint, I can't think of anything that's better than Doom Patrol in terms of capturing exactly what made it great in the hands of, Arnold Drake and Paul Kupperberg and Grant Morrison and now these TV writers. It's amazingly good.
Yeah, I was just listening to you talk about that with the last podcast that you did.
With Brian,
my brother's an actor, and he got very close to being cast as Beast Boy in Titans.
Oh, wow.
Is that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, you can catch him on Orange is the New Black, season 5 coming out on Netflix.
Hey, that's great. Fantastic. Congratulations to your brother. That's wonderful.
He's doing great. I'm so proud of him. But he gets called in for a lot of these DC Universe shows. So we're all hoping that he'll pop up on a DC thing while I'm on a DC thing. So we'll see if we can make that work. That'll be really cool.
That's funny. I have an actor buddy who's really doing well, and she's in a million things right now. And she used to always get called in to Star Trek, and she would audition, and she never got a role, but she would always get called in for like Voyager and Enterprise. And, to play an alien or something like that. And it's, you're so close, and it's too bad. And now she's kicking ass, and she's on a million TV shows and films and stuff, so I'm very proud of her.
I could imagine you calling her asking for spoilers. What's going to happen next
That's
episode?
so funny, because there are writers and TV writers and comic writers like, you want to know what happens? And I'm always like, no. I'm like, I want to be surprised. I'm like, let's talk afterwards, and then we'll talk about it and everything. Because... I miss Jeff Johns, because Jeff was always like that. Jeff would always be like at the end of the story, at the end of the talk, he'd be like, okay, now you want to know what happens? And I'm like, no, Jeff, you're delighting me with your story. I'm like, I kind of want to know, but I also want to be surprised because, you're shocking me with this stuff. I'm loving Doomsday Clock, by the way.
I'm behind on everything. Yeah, but I mean, we were talking about Gary Frank. I mean, that guy is...
God, yeah.
The legend. And
there's another guy that I've had correspondence with, but not lately, that I need to get back to and and say, hey, let's really talk, man. Let's find a time to talk. No, Gary's incredible, and I love what Tom is doing on Heroes in Crisis. I think that's a tremendous event right now. No, DC's killing it right now, man. I'm glad you're a part of it, and I'm glad that Under the Moon. I wanted to have a great success, so I'm happy to have you on to talk about it. Anything else as we wrap up? I think we've had a nice chunk here. We'll go long another time. Again, unfortunately, we left a little bit of our game in the locker room, and we talked for about an hour and 15 minutes.
I just want to talk about one more thing.
Sure,
one more thing. My mom passed away recently around November, but she was just this extraordinary woman. I was 15 years old, and this is very crazy, the fact that this ever happened. But I was 15, just starting to get into comics, just starting to become very passionate about it. And Fred Pierce was our neighbor. So Fred and my mom was very popular in the town. She was just this very different person, very unique, and she would do these things that people in town would go up to her and always say, like, how do you even think to do something like that, right? So my mom had this very different way of approaching situations and showing support. So one of the things that my mom did when I was in high school was she set up this dinner with Fred and for the biggest Asian artists in the industry. So my mom was Korean, and I'm half Korean, of course. Okay. And so she wanted to inspire me. She had a very strong sense of identity. So she was also a stand-up comedian. She was also a Hebrew school teacher at this time. So, my mom you should have had my mom on your show. That you would have had a real kick at her. So she was a stand-up comedian. And with that, she was a member of the Friars Club. You must know the Friars Club, yes?
I absolutely know the Friars Club. That's fantastic. Your mom was a member. Holy cow.
Yeah, she performed all the time in the 90s.
Wow.
And, I mean,
are there YouTubes of your mom's stand-up?
I don't know. I haven't checked.
What was your mom's stage name?
Esther Goodhart.
Esther Goodhart. We're going to have to look her up, man.
Her stage name was Oriental Beauty, which is a moniker that hasn't aged great in today's era. Anyway,
I understand. That's all right. That's
So, yeah, there you go. So my mom, this was my mom, and so at this dinner was Sean Chen, Cliff Chang, and Jay Lee, and then coming in a little bit fashionably late, halfway through his run on Hush, was Jim Lee. So my mom introduced me to Jim Lee and these other artists. I don't talk about this story much, not with my friends, because you want to talk about like opportunities and privilege and all that kind of stuff. This is the most remarkable thing that any parent could do for their kid who's interested in comics. This is unbelievable. And I'm sitting next to Sean Chen. I like turn into like a mini Chris Farley. I remember that time you drew the unibeam that comes out like that. And that's really cool. And poor Sean Chen is just sitting next to this, little high school kid just like, oh, please stop talking to me. So that was 2 hours. Sean did not say that at all. He's the nicest guy in comics. So, and my mom would always say, like, you should reach out to them, you should ask them to be your mentor, and you should show them your art, which even the idea that today as, like, a grown adult gives me so much anxiety, the idea that I would, like, say,
no.
Drew Wonder Woman, you want to look at it? But I have seen them since then at comic conventions, all of them, and they've been so kind and so supportive. And
so did she cold call them, basically?
Well, Fred at the time was the COO of Wizard, so he had access.
Yeah, so Fred helped facilitate this. Oh, that's amazing, man. Exactly. That's incredible. Exactly. Wow.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable, and so years later, I get this opportunity to draw Under the Moon, and I'm drawing it, and I started in February. In June, so halfway through the year, in June, my mom gets sick, and I get the call. It's actually at Heroes Con, and I get the call that my mom has stage 4 ovarian cancer, which is one of the aggressive ones. Yeah. And so a lot of the book, the book is very special to me for a lot of reasons. This is the first book that I drew at DC. This is the dream job that I've wanted since I was a kid. It was just a tremendous creative experience, but I'm drawing this book beside my mom while she's getting carboplatin and Toxil injections and chemotherapy. So I would switch off with my brother, or sometimes every week I would leave Queens and go back to New Jersey and drive my mom to the hospital. And I would be beside her for sometimes 5 hours at the hospital drawing Catwoman. And my mom passed away towards the end of the project in November, right before Thanksgiving, and it's very painful to think about. And I'm very sad that she's not around to see the release of the book, and because my mom, seeing me and my brother succeed in things gave her a lot of joy. But I'm very thankful and grateful for the fact that I was able to share the me working on that book with her and draw that beside her and talk to her about the book, and she was very much a part of it. And it feels like I was able to make good on that introduction that she gave me to these comic book creators 15 years ago. So in a way, this book is my last gift to my mom. Cool little epilogue is that Jim Lee actually talked about this story and that dinner at WonderCon at the publishers meeting. So I got a bunch of tweets that day. You know what it's like getting a bunch of tweets from Jim Lee that are just like, or people saying, Jim Lee's talking about you. So that was really cool. And that stuff would have made my mom very happy. So thanks for letting me tell you about that story.
Dude, that's amazing. And honestly, it really is great to hear how gracious all the people at DC that you're working with have been, both through the the talent search and the apprenticeship, and especially to hear that about Jim. I have heard other stories about Jim being a good guy, but it's really great to hear that kind of first person account. And really, your mom sounds amazing, and I'm glad Fred was able to help this stuff. And it doesn't surprise me that your career went the way that it did, because you got that kind of reinforcement from your mom, and also from other people in your life. That's from Klaus on, SVA and everything. That's great, man. Seriously, good origin story, man. This is great.
There it is.
I really like it, and yeah, man. I've been there. I lost my parents young as well, it's rough, and I can appreciate that. And I thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure we're not alone, and I'm sure a lot of people listening might have had similar situations. So that's terrific, and I'm really glad your mom got to see you succeed at Top Cow and get published, and see you working at DC and this project as well. So that's terrific, man. And that's the great thing as time goes on, these are the kind of great things that you're going to hang on to, and it's just going to give you a warm feeling. So that's great. I appreciate. I'm sure it's still a tough time for you and your brother. Is it just you two? Are there other siblings?
It's just me and my brother and my father.
Okay, yeah man. No, I feel for all of you, man, and it's tough, but like I said, the great thing is you'll also, as you meet people that knew your mom and stuff like that. That's always the greatest gift, is hearing stories about your mom. I'm sure, and I feel that way about my parents too, and it really does. It fills me with some real joy when I hear these things. So I hear you, man.
It's a weird club to be a part of, John. The club that you and I are in, but there is a tremendous amount of solace in it. There's a lot. The support systems that we're in are really great, and they're very helpful. Phil Jimenez was very helpful and very kind to me because he lost his mother too.
There you go.
And so it's just so it's difficult, but I've been very, very lucky, and I'm very grateful for the things that have happened and the things that my mom got to see and got to be a part of. So
I hear you, dude. Yeah. No, that's terrific, man. And truly, really happy with the way things are going career-wise, and very excited for Under the Moon. Again, it's coming out in May, and you'll get a nice little taste of it as well on Free Comic Book Day in early May, that first Saturday. So nice going, Isaac Goodhart. Well done. And truly, man, great conversation, both on the record and off the record. And next time we'll do more on the record and stuff. But no, I'm very excited and looking forward to whatever the next chapter is for Isaac Goodhart. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Great conversation with Isaac Goodhart. Check out Catwoman, Under the Moon. I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's a great story and beautiful art from Isaac. Really excited for him and where his career is going. I know his mom would be very proud with the accomplishments that Isaac has made and continues to make in comics. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation on Word Balloon. It was brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you again, League, for your support via Patreon. If you want to help out and subscribe to Word Balloon, you can go to wordballoon.com, click on the Patreon ad there on the front page, or go to patreon.com/wordballoon. But thank you very much, League of Word Balloon listeners. Also, this episode brought to you by Aftershock Comics, the industry's fastest-growing independent publishing company. They're calling 2019 the year of reading dangerously. They're backing it up with some incredible independent titles that have some of your favorite creators behind them. Things like Pestilence from Frank Thierry, Animosity from Marguerite Bennett, A Walk Through Hell from Garth Ennis, Baby Teeth from Donny Cates, Dark Ark from Cullen Bunn. Great stuff. Also, brand new books as well, like Descendant by Stephanie Phillips. Killer Groove that comes out in a couple of weeks from Ollie Masters and Owen Marin. In fact, the other Word Balloon podcast today is a great conversation with Ollie and Owen talking about their book Killer Groove, a very cool LA crime book, a nice companion to what Ollie did on the great book The Kitchen that Vertigo did a few years ago. And really excited to be talking to Ollie again and Owen. That conversation again, another Word Balloon podcast in your feed. But there's also Stronghold from Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly, Oberon from Ryan Parrott, Dark Red from Tim Seeley. Lots more great books from Aftershock Comics. We'll have more conversations with Aftershock creators about their books, but in the meantime, go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on these books to order through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, I'm going to rest the voice. So thank you. Happy anniversary. Thank you for supporting me these 14 years. I look forward to many more years giving you great comic and pop culture conversation right here at WordBalloon.com. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.